Thought it might be fun to talk about how to create a beautiful centerpiece today. The first thing I want to think about is the vessel that you choose. In our case, we have a tablescape that's going to have rich, warm reds for the holiday season. So what we're going to do is use this gold vase. I love it because it's elevated, so it's going to give some visual interest and pop off the table. The other thing that's interesting to think about with this vase is that it has an oblong shape. So we are going to put this on a long rectangular table. It's really nice to have the opportunity to think about the shape of your vase as you're thinking about your table shape. So if you had a rounded table, it might be nice to do more of a rounded shape arrangement. At any rate, with this vase, we always want to make sure, because it's raised a little bit, we don't want the flowers to come too high up, because when you're sitting across the table from someone, you want to have really, really wonderful conversation. You want to be able to see each other rather than be looking through a forest of flowers. So I always use 12 inches as my height. We always want to design 12 inches or lower for something that's going to be on a tablescape where people are across the table from one another. This vessel has a really unique shape, and the inside is a little bit shallow. So as we're designing, if we just thought, oh, I'm going to put some flowers in here, they're going to tend to flop out. So it's really important that we have some mechanics inside that are going to hold the flowers in as we're designing in the vase. I really like to use chicken wire for this. This is a florist's chicken wire, so it has a plastic coating. The nice thing about this is you can go ahead and reuse this over and over again. So sometimes you'll hear people talk about floral foam, and that is certainly an option as well. I just find that in general, it's not really great for the environment. It is a microplastic. It does break down and go straight into the ocean. So we love this because we can reuse it. What I typically do is I store it in a roll like this. We clip it with some wire cutters, and you'll see it's very pliable. You can bend it and mold it to exactly what you'd like to use. I tuck it right into the vase, and it's going to create lots of little nooks for me to place the flowers. The other thing that we want to think about as we're putting this in is to secure the chicken wire. So I'll use a little bit of florist tape. This is a waterproof tape, so I can use just 2 little pieces, attach it to the wire, and then lightly attach it to the side of the vase. It is okay if it comes out a little bit because your flowers are going to spill over. No one's going to see this little part of the tape, but it's just going to give enough security that it'll keep it in as you're designing. And if you want to transport it, bring it to a friend's house, it'll really, really keep it in there so it's not spilling out, and it'll help you not to slosh water around. So we're just going to add some tape into here to secure it to the vase. Then we're going to go ahead and add some water. When I'm designing, I usually fill the vase about halfway full. I want to make sure that whatever stems I have going into the vase are going to go ahead and reach the water, but it doesn't need to be all the way up because the volume will increase as we add some stems. All right, so we are ready to start designing. First things first, I love to start with greenery. So whether you're using fresh greens, in our case, for the holiday season, we're going to use some really unique evergreens. You want to really fill the vase with the shape that you're going to use, and then go ahead and add your flowers in. So today, we're using a number of different pines. Pine affects people's skin in lots of different ways. For me, I get a little bit of a reaction and a little bit itchy. So as I'm working with the pine, I'm going to put some gloves on. Many people find that this is really helpful when they are working with flowers in general. Many flowers come with a pretty high pesticide load because they're coming from out of our country. So I find gloves in general are helpful when you're working with the blooms. So as we're designing, you'll see I'm adding lots of variety. of greenery in. I also really love magnolia leaves during the holiday season. I just think they add that velvety, rich texture. The other thing I love to add is eucalyptus. Its scent is really nice. It dries beautifully. So what you'll find when you're arranging with evergreens and magnolia and eucalyptus, while the flowers might fade, you can have your greenery base last for quite a long time because it's going to go ahead and dry. So you want to be very careful as you're preparing your arrangement to make sure that your stem is fully in the water. You don't want any greenery left on the stem because that greenery is going to have bacteria. Bacteria will grow as a result of that greenery, and it will go ahead and make the water gunky, and your flowers are going to die and rot much faster. So in this case, they'll stay fresh longer. Your greenery, evergreens, and your magnolia will dry, and then when your flowers fade, you just pull them out and pop in some new flowers. So it's nice to really get some longevity out of your arrangement. I like to work on a Lazy Susan. You'll see I have this underneath. It's a really, really wonderful tool as you're designing because it allows you to move your vase as you're working so that you can see the front and the back of your arrangement. So I can see already in the front here, I have some pieces that are sticking up. So I want to soften that look by adding more greenery spilling over. Again, we have that little bit of tape that we want to hide as well. Now that we have our arrangement mostly greened, we're going to go ahead and add in the florals. I always think it's important to think about the size of the flower that you're adding into the greenery. So we have some components today that are a little bit larger, and we have some components that are a little bit smaller. So we want to think about putting those larger components in first so that we can see how they scale and how they shape the arrangement. From there, we can go ahead and tuck in some of those smaller blooms. We happen to have some really, really unique and beautiful pomegranates still on their stems. So I'm going to use these. I love the shape of them. I also think it's fantastic to incorporate fruit in general into your arrangement. It's really, really easy to do. Sometimes I use oranges, sometimes I'll use pears or apples that time of year. Lemons are fun in the springtime. So what I typically do is I will use a little skewer. You might have a bamboo skewer at home if you grill, but we just go ahead and pop that skewer right into the base of the fruit. I will say the fruit, as soon as you put that hole in the fruit, it's only going to last for a couple of days. So it's important to kind of keep an eye on it, but it just adds such an interesting touch to the arrangement. And you can see because I have that chicken wire inside the arrangement, it tucks in so well. It's not going to fall over or flop around. So I have a smaller scale one. I might want something that's going to be a little bit larger. So let's say we use this one back to the side. If it seems like it's going to be too heavy for the stake that you have, I really like these. If you ever get an orchid, this is the stem that supports the orchid. But I think it's a really, really great tool to use. You can cut it to whatever size you like. And then you can go ahead and use it in the same way you use the skewer. Just tucks in there so nicely. I'm going to add a couple of other components. I really, really love pepperberry this time of year. I think it's going to add some incredible texture. Obviously, we're going with a red theme. And this is just going to help us from a shape perspective. Now, remember we talked about adding the larger pieces in first. Normally, I would say this is smaller because of the little detail, but because it's one large mass quantity of floral, we'll want to go ahead and tuck it right in and think of it as a larger piece. So I'd like it to kind of cooperate and bend backwards a little bit. The other piece that we want to add, which I think will be interesting, we have some of this preserved leaf left from our holiday, fall, Thanksgiving arrangements. And I think that this will add an interesting touch and really help transition the seasons. So this might be a really interesting beginning of the season arrangement. Again, we want to start to think about, is it going to be too high for our guests or is it going to be low enough? So as I'm looking at this arrangement, I see this is coming up a little bit high. I might want to trim it to adjust it. There we go. So that feels like it's gonna be really comfortable for conversation. I don't mind 1 or 2 little pieces coming up, but a full piece like that would really be in the way. So again, we're going to continue to work in that oblong shape as we design, keeping it shorter on the sides and a little bit fuller to give us some length. These roses are my absolute favorite red rose. It's called Hearts, and you can see the inside just has this beautiful rumply texture. So we always will give it a clip. Very, very important. When you are putting your flowers in, you want to clip on a really, really extreme angle. That angle is going to really help the surface area absorb as much water as possible. So again, we're just going to kind of pop those arrangements up, pop those flowers up and through the arrangement. In some tulips. I think they're really great in a winter arrangement because it's sort of that little tease that spring is coming. I love the color and their movement in the arrangement as well. So we're just gonna pop some of these in there. Something that we really love to do with tulips is reflex the petals. This is great if you're having a one-night dinner party. Not so much if you want them to last for a couple of weeks, but we just take the tulip petal itself. You pull back the petal and pop it out with your thumb. And you can see it creates this really beautiful, much fuller bloom, especially when a tulip is very tight when you first get it. So a couple of those in there just look so unique. And you can see the inside, which we really, really love. So as I'm designing, I'm looking for spots that feel empty. So I do feel like there's a big hole right here. So I want to make sure that I'm filling that, whether it's with another pomegranate, whether it's with some more roses. We want to make sure that it doesn't feel like one dense type of floral, but rather has different layers and levels as you're looking at the arrangement itself. You can see that it has a really full elongated shape, which is something that without that chicken wire inside, we wouldn't be able to do. So it really, really captures the length of the table. It's gonna fill up the table nicely, but it's gonna be narrow enough that you'll have plenty of room on either side for your glassware, and it's not so high that you won't be able to converse across the way. We hope you enjoy making this arrangement at home.